Hey everybody, I hope you guys are healthy and safe. So one of the common complaints I always hear from smartphone fans and also my phone reviewer peers is that all the new Android phones look and feel very similar and they all have very lazy packaging. Or if you're in that camp, the new ROG phone from ASUS is going to impress you. So first things first, the ROG phone is a gaming phone. ROG stands for Republic of Gamers. It is ASUS's gaming sub-brand. This is the new ROG Phone 7 Ultimate. There's also a standard ROG Phone 7, but the differences between the Ultimate and the 7 actually are not that big, so most of what I'm about to say here will apply to the standard ROG Phone 7 too. Now this phone is designed for serious hardcore gamers, and to be honest, I am not one of those. But even for someone who don't play PUBG for like 3 hours a night, I can appreciate what ASUS has built here with the ROG Phone 7 Ultimate and the standard ROG Phone 7. Because most of the things that make this an awesome epic gaming phone actually carries over to the real world usage. For example, both the ROG Phone 7 Ultimate and the standard ROG phone has a 6.8-inch OLED display sourced from Samsung with a maximum nits of 1500, supports HDR10, and a refresh rate up to 165 Hz. Now, the 165 Hz refresh rate is custom designed by ASUS just for this phone, so it is buttery smooth. And to be honest, as someone who have been using 120 Hz screens for several years now, suddenly jumping to 165 Hz, I can see the difference. Everything just looks a little bit more fluid. And yeah, the high refresh rate is designed for gaming, but even if you're not gaming, just basic things like scrolling through Instagram, entering and exiting out of apps, sending a text message and swiping WhatsApp away, everything just feels more aesthetically pleasing to my eyes. The screen's also completely uninterrupted with no notch and no hole punch. And yeah, there is a small bezel at the top and bottom, but that's by design, so you can hold the phone a little bit easier when you have it in landscape orientation. On top of that, the bezels also house symmetrical front-facing large speakers that measures 12 by 16 millimeters, and they pump out absolutely epic sound. And if you're an audiophile, there's also a 3.5 millimeter headphone jack so you can plug in your high-end headphones. Pair that with 16 gigs of the latest LPDDR5X RAM and 512 gigs of UFS 4.0 storage, and you have all the latest components to make this phone feel as fast as possible. And then when you consider the 6,000 mAh battery in here, obviously that large battery is again designed for heavy gamers. But if you're not heavy gaming and you're just taking this phone out for a day out and about, the 6,000 mAh cell can go longer than any other Android phone on the market. So when you consider all that, this is an excellent, super powerful and fast phone, even if you're not gaming. You can use this to watch YouTube and Netflix and get the best sound and get uninterrupted display. You can text and type on this and get excellent haptics. You can use this as a Bluetooth wireless speaker at parties because the speakers are so good. You can use this as a normal phone and it may last you 2 days on a single charge. And the charger is included with the packaging too, of course. But of course, if you use the phone just for that, you will be underutilizing the ROG Phone 7 Ultimate because this phone is designed by ASUS to handle all your extreme gaming needs. So what are the differences between the ROG Phone 7 Ultimate and the standard ROG Phone 7? There are really only two. The first is that there is a display on the back of the Ultimate. It's called ROG Vision, and it just displays graphics and text as a little bit of a decoration. It doesn't really do much. The second difference is a little bit more practical. There's an extra vent right here. Now this vent, it's meant to be used with this. This is the Aero Active Cooler Fan, and it comes with the packaging with the Ultimate phone. You plug it into the USB-C port at the bottom, and then you clip on, and the fan will actually open up the vent inside to blow cool air inside the phone. So when you combine the fan with the internal cooling system, which is already very advanced, I'll get to it later, you have a phone that you can game for hours at a time without losing performance because the phone will stay cool. And this isn't just a fan, it's also a subwoofer. It will add additional bass to your audio. And it has clickable buttons, so you can map these to any game that you play. Now, this active cooler fan comes with the ROG Phone 7 Ultimate's packaging, but I believe ASUS may be selling this separately. It's worth about $110 US. The ROG Phone 7 Ultimate comes in a very unique box made out of recyclable material that has an interactive flap. You put the ROG Phone 7 Ultimate on the flap during setup, and it will guide you through a mini game that you actually need the flap to play. There are buttons on the flap for you to press, and after that, you play a mini game as you set up the phone. It's a very fun and interactive way to introduce you to the ROG Phone 7 if this is your first time testing an ROG phone. Now, the phone is a little bit heavy at 239 grams, but the weight is evenly distributed, so it fits into the hand pretty comfortably. And it's heavy because there's so much tech in here. In addition to all the stuff I just mentioned, the speakers and the haptics and the display, you also get a very advanced thermal cooling system. Now, I say system because this isn't just one sheet of copper plate on the back of the phone. No, instead, ASUS designed the entire structure of this phone to maximize heat dissipation. So, for example, the Qualcomm Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 chip, it's placed exactly in the middle of the phone, wrapped in an aluminum mid-frame. The aluminum frame will help the chip dissipate heat, and then that mid-frame is sandwiched by two separate sheets. On the back, it's a graphite sheet, which helps dissipate heat. On the front, it's a rapid cycle vapor chamber with active liquid cooling inside. And then on top of that, it's another graphite sheet. So you have multiple layers and structures to help the Qualcomm Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 chip dissipate heat as fast as possible. And that's without using the Aero Active Cooler fan. So even by default, this cooling system, it's able to keep the phone cooler by a couple of degrees compared to the Galaxy S23 Ultra or the iPhone 14 Pro Max. If you actually clip this on, the difference is jarring. You're getting 7 to 8 degrees Celsius cooler. That's Celsius. It's significantly more than 7 to 8 degrees Fahrenheit. So you get a significantly cooler experience when you're using the fan and a little bit cooler experience when you're not using the fan. If you're not familiar with gaming, a phone staying cool is highly important because when you run a mobile chip, when it gets too hot, what it does is it will throttle itself, meaning it will start capping performance so that it can lower its heat output. If you keep the phone cool, then that means the chip doesn't need to throttle itself. So you can play like PUBG or Genshin Impact for an hour, 2 hours at a time, and performance will keep at a steady high level instead of with other phones where it may run at a high level for like 20 minutes, and after the phone gets hot, then performance starts dipping. You see frame rate drop, all that. Not right here. You can run almost every game in the highest graphics setting and play for an hour without any issues. But that's not all in terms of hardware. There are also two trigger buttons on the right side of the phone, which when you hold the phone in landscape orientation, it will be at the top and bottom. They're touch-sensitive triggers with very strong and precise haptics, so when you press into them, it actually feels like you're pressing to a clicky button. These buttons also can register taps, swipes, and also can be split into two parts. So you can like tap on the right side of the button or the left side of the button to do two different actions. So that means all the combination of taps and swipes and other gestures, along with the 4 buttons in this fan, combined, you have over like a dozen actions you can do just without ever touching the screen. And you can map all that anywhere onto the screen, of course. And you can map all that on the screen, of course. ASUS has designed a whole gaming UI for this phone. So whenever you're in a game and you swipe from the upper right corner, you will bring up a pop-up menu called Game Genie. This will allow you to do things like block outside app notifications, begin recording your screen, map the buttons that you want, set specific haptic vibrations. Like you can set vibration to specific parts of the phone or how strong or weak it is, and just do a bunch of other things that a normal phone doesn't offer you. And Game Genie also lets you cycle through different modes. So by default, you should run the phone in dynamic. This will find a perfect balance between system performance, refresh rate, touch responsiveness, and battery endurance. But if you're gaming, you may want to jump to X mode, which will then push all the phone's resources to make the game run better, such as system performance. It will bump up the refresh rate to keep it at a maximum level, and it will even enhance network reception. Now, like I said earlier, I am not a heavy gamer. I have never played Genshin Impact or PUBG for like 3 hours at a time like some of my friends do. Usually when I play games on my phones, they go no more than 30 minutes. So to be honest, this phone, it's overkill for me. But like I said, I do have a lot of friends who do play PUBG, Genshin Impact for like 4 hours at a time. And for them, a phone like this is absolutely awesome because they can play for hours and not lose performance as long as they're using this fan. And also, I forgot to mention, at the bottom of the fan, it's also a headphone jack and a USB-C port with pass-through charging. So that means you can play and charge at the same time without the phone getting hot. But even for a casual gamer like me, I've definitely taken advantage of all this phone's features. I've been using the air triggers a lot when I've been playing third-person shooters like Zuba and Max Payne. Max Payne in particular was originally designed for PS2. So that game really, it benefits a lot from having shoulder triggers. So when you play that game on an iPhone or Galaxy S23 Ultra, it just doesn't play as well as on an ROG Phone 7 because you have triggers, which helps you shoot while leaving your thumb free to aim. Now, as for the camera system, obviously the cameras are not the focal point of this phone, but I find the main camera, it's a 50 megapixel IMX766, to be pretty usable during the day. Even at night, it's not my favorite night shots, but photos are pretty solid with the main camera. The 8 megapixel ultra-wide camera, unfortunately, is a little bit soft in low light situations, but still fine during the day. And then there's an 8 megapixel macro sensor on the back too. Around the front, you have a selfie camera that gets the job done. I don't really take a lot of selfies. I don't have much opinion on it. So overall, the ROG Phone 7 Ultimate, it's a powerhouse. If you care about gaming remotely, you should consider checking this phone out, particularly since it comes with the fan. If you're not as hardcore a gamer, maybe you can get the ROG Phone 7, which will still come with the same display, chip, speakers, cameras, air triggers, all that, except you don't get the extra vent and the screen on the back. Now, these phones are not cheap, however. The ROG Phone 7 Ultimate starts at €1,300, but that comes with the active cooler fan and also that really unique packaging. The ROG Phone 7 starts at €999. So you're looking at phones that are well over $1,000 US. But again, if you're a heavy gamer, I think you may find that it's worth it. But if you're not a gamer at all, then yeah, maybe you can look elsewhere for a phone with a better camera. But then I would say this phone's speakers and display is still worth it, even if you just use it to watch Netflix all the time. So anyway, that's about it for this review on the ROG Phone 7 Ultimate. I have a lot more coming, including an Ultra phone from a company I can't talk about yet, but it's coming soon. And also, I may be getting my hands on the Huawei Mate X3. So if you're interested in keeping up to date with all the latest smartphones and gadgets, please consider subscribing to my channel. That's it for now. Thanks for watching.